Hi, good morning. Guess what I have to show you? I have some awesome stuff to show you. I'm super thrilled. Can we zoom in on this? We didn't practice this and we maybe should have. Look what I found. Can you guys see it? Isn't it cute? This is a caterpillar, but not only is this a caterpillar, this is a monarch caterpillar. We got our native milkweed in, everybody. Yay, I'm so excited. So, I am Sarah. I'm a horticulturist here at Rogers Gardens, and today's plant of the week, which I always talk to you about on Thursday, is the California native narrow-leafed milkweed. So we finally got it in. Everybody has been asking and calling. It is here. We have lots of it. So come in and get it because we do sell out of our batches pretty quickly. We're trying really hard to stay consistent with having it all the time. But, you know, we get a big run on it and everybody comes in and buys a ton of it and then we don't have it. So if you want it, come now. Like, get in your car. We're gonna put this in our Facebook or an Instagram later. You can watch it later. Come get it now. We have lots of little babies. I picked this one out actually yesterday. Which is pretty cool, and I watched him all day long and he's just chomping away. It was really funny. He was actually eating so hard that he was taking bites and pulling. It was so funny. So he was really active. We have, in total, I saw about 12 caterpillars. So we do already have caterpillars on the native milkweed, which is really cool. So it's really fun to come in and watch them eat, and even watching the adults lay the eggs, which is really exciting. So I always walk over there and kind of watch, and as people walk by, point it out. I didn't see any new eggs on this one. I was really looking, but he's devoured this. This was pretty full. So yesterday, this plant looked like this. Now it looks like this because he figured it out, which is really cool. So they're such beautiful caterpillars. They have really beautiful coloration on them. These are the good guys. These are the guys you want to have in your garden. So we're talking all about milkweed today, and I want to give you a little bit of education about it, but we are in the middle of our spring celebration here at Rogers. So every weekend we've had a different theme to the weekend. So the first weekend was kind of just gardening 101. We talked soil, we talked prep, we talked maintenance. The week after that, which was last weekend, it was all about veggies and gourmet veggies and how to add veggies into your garden. This week coming up, it's all about the monarchs and all about how to support the monarchs and how to support them in the correct way. So if you haven't been paying attention, but here at Rogers, we've really been trying to educate everybody about the difference between tropical milkweed and native milkweed, and why to not plant the tropical and why to only plant the native. We've been working on this education for quite a few years now. It's really important. There is an issue with the tropical milkweed. I know a lot of people look at it and they think, gosh, it's so pretty. The way you know you have tropical is it has the red or yellow or orange colored flowers. You do not want that color in your garden. So these ones have kind of a pale, kind of pinky, creamy, whitish flower. Honestly, they're a little more rangy. They're not as attractive. So I think that's the reason a lot of people go for the tropicals, because it's a whole lot prettier. So I brought some other plants to show you how to kind of hide that and actually make it even more attractive to the butterflies anyways. But you don't want to have that color in your garden. If you have that color in your garden, that is the one that actually gets the protozoan parasite on it, which is the problem for the caterpillars. So we thought we were doing the right thing by trying to help feed them, but we were planting the wrong stuff for a pretty long time. And the problem with that one is too, is, you know, if you've had it, that it goes to seed and it spreads everywhere. So that's another big issue with that too, is even if you're being really good and you're pulling it out and you're trying to replace it, you got to check for all the places that it spread. Your neighbor's yard, the medians, parks, schools. I walk around a lot of different parks and I see it all the time, and when I see it, I pull it out. People probably think I'm insane as I'm walking around because I'm pulling out plants and weeding for my local parks, but it's not a good one to have because it doesn't go dormant. So it needs to go completely dormant in the winter. It's the one that hosts all the protozoan. It doesn't affect the caterpillars. So a lot of gardeners think, okay, well, I have the tropical and my caterpillars seem fine. My butterflies lay on it. The caterpillars eat it like crazy. They hatch, they fly away. I don't understand what the problem is. What the problem is it builds up inside the adult caterpillars, and that's where the issue lies. They mate, they pass it on to each other, it weakens them, and they die. So they're not living as long as they should. Sometimes too, even when they do hatch, sometimes you'll see those couple that kind of are a little weird looking. Their wings aren't totally unfurling the right way, and they never really kind of take off. They are affected. Sometimes you'll see that on your native. Well, of course you will, because they've mated with another adult butterfly who had it from eating off of your neighbor's incorrect milkweed. So what we're trying super hard to do is spread the word so nobody has tropical milkweed anymore. You should not have tropical milkweed anymore. Another argument that I hear a lot of times is, oh, well, I'm just going to cut it back every year. It can be on the roots, it can be on the tiny part of the stem that stays above the ground. Why have the wrong thing when you can have the right thing? Also, you don't want to spread. Say you have the right one, yay, okay, or the wrong one, and you're doing okay and you're cutting it down, but it's gonna spread into other places where they don't know how to take care of it. So I'm trying really hard, and we're trying really hard here in general here at Rogers, and we're doing all kinds of really fun things to kind of spread that education. But this is the one that you should have. There are 3 different types of native California milkweed here. The narrow-leafed one is the best one for our region. There are other types, some broadleaf ones, and there's one other one. It's like more of a swampy one. But you want to have the right one for your region. So this is the right one for your region. It is kind of tall. It is kind of spindly. I tuck mine in between other plants that the butterflies actually drink the nectar from. So this is just for the caterpillars. This doesn't do anything for the adult butterflies, with the exception of actually laying the eggs on there, and then the caterpillars eat it. But you want to make sure you have nectar plants for the adult butterflies to drink. All the mamas and the daddies need help, right? They need to have the food, they need to have the water. So I tuck mine in between the other plants that attract the adult butterflies. One of my favorite ones here is Buddleia. This is called butterfly bush. They're really just starting to come in color. I picked the only one that I found that had some good color. Such a pretty flower. The way you know what's going to attract the adult butterflies is multiple little flowers. So if you look at every single one of these, there's tons and tons and tons of little flowers, something that they can land on that's kind of like a landing pad. So I always kind of joke, especially with the lantana. This is the lantana here. Doesn't it look like a helicopter landing pad? It even has a bullseye, which I think is really funny. So this is something that they're going to really be attracted to. They come in, they drink the nectar out of these individual little flowers, and then they go, oh look, something I can lay my babies on. They lay their babies on it, the eggs hatch, the little beautiful chubby little caterpillars are eaten away, they hatch, and then they have nectar plants to drink from. So I kind of tuck mine and hide mine in between those kind of plants, so that way it is a little straggly, especially near the season. The end of the season looks a little lanky and kind of weird, but when it's mixed in amongst all this other stuff, it's really nice. It will go totally dormant. We get a lot of questions about how do I overwinter it, what do I do with it? Really kind of nothing. I don't pay it any extra attention really. I give it a little bit of supplemental watering in the springtime. Once I hit near the summertime, I'm only watering my other individual plants. If it's getting some side water, that's fine. If it's getting irrigation water because you're watering your other stuff, that's okay too. But in the winter time, just kind of ignore it. You don't need to do anything special to it at all. It's going to die completely down. I had one exception that didn't die totally down. It got so straggly towards the end. It was probably the end of fall. I just finally cut it down because I was tired of looking at it. But it spreads really well, and it spreads underground. So I'm looking around and I'm seeing all my stuff come up, and some of mine's a little bit bigger than this even, but it's all starting to pop up, and I have other little babies that have popped up all over the place too. So it's starting to really spread. So I'm kind of digging those up and putting them into other parts of my garden as well. So I'm kind of spreading it around a little bit. So it's really nice. It spreads from underground roots. It also will spread if you let it go to seed, but not so much like the tropical one. The tropical one's very obvious when it's going to seed and how it's spreading its little poofy things that kind of fly around. But we don't want that, right? So this one spreads from underground, which is really kind of cool. If you have it in pots, a lot of people will plant this in pots. Once it goes dormant, plant, you need to give it a little bit of water. So don't put it someplace inside like a garage or something like that. If it can get some natural rainwater, that's really good. Occasionally water just a little bit if you have it in an area that's totally covered, that not getting any rainwater. I would even suggest maybe planting a handful of other California natives so you can take care of those, because they're going to need the same kind of stuff. So maybe some really pretty penstemon or something like that else in, because a lot of the California natives look really nice here in the winter. So you can keep that pot looking pretty, so it's not something you have to put off to a side and kind of, you know, abandon over in a corner and it's kind of shunned over there. So that way it actually still looks really pretty. So remember, it is a California native, so it doesn't need a ton of water, doesn't need a lot of extra care. Other critters do enjoy this. I do find that it gets the oleander aphid on it, which is kind of an orange color aphid. It's not really a huge problem. If the whole thing becomes really infested, it can be an issue for the plant in the way that it's not photosynthesizing as well, and it's maybe just a tiny bit more stressed from having the oleander aphid pulling out all the saps and stuff out of there, because they're feeding off of all the sugars that the plant makes as it's photosynthesizing. Right, so you'll see those little orange ones. What you can do is you can always wipe those off. You can spray them off gently with the hose. You don't want to spray them with anything, because that's going to defeat the whole entire purpose. Oh, all of a sudden he is really just going for it. I just looked down and he is into it. So what you can do is wipe those off, spray them off gently with a hose, but look for eggs. Make sure that there's no eggs on there and you're not affecting those. So I try to kind of just live with it. I find that it doesn't really spread around to any of my other plants. Not really. It doesn't. I haven't seen it spread to any of my other plants, so it's not really that big of an issue. But like I said, if it gets too big, I just kind of go through with like a little paper towel. Honestly, I probably do it with my fingers more than a paper towel. I'm a gardener, so I don't really mind those kind of things, but wiping those off and just taking them off. But always look for eggs. You can see what the little eggs look like if you're really paying attention. I haven't noticed any new eggs on any of these, but I haven't really been looking super hard. But yeah, pulling those off. The other really important thing is you want to make sure that your milkweed is not treated, and it's really impossible to tell if it's treated or not. There's no way to know. We do know that the person that we've contracted to go with is a specialty grower that grows a lot of California native plants, which is really kind of a neat thing, but they're not treating it at all. So that's really, really important. There's a lot of neonicotinoids, which I have a hard time saying, but I said that right, or BT spray, which is something they spray onto the plants because they don't want to get it eaten down before they actually bring it into a nursery, which again is defeating the whole purpose, because now if they lay their eggs on there and they're eating it, it's affecting the caterpillars. So ours, we guarantee, has not been sprayed, which is super important. So there's, again, no way to tell. You can't look at it until we know that the person we've contracted with is a native plant grower. They are really interested in making sure that we're supporting the population in the correct way. So ours are completely untreated, which is really important. And we don't want to panic about whether or not we have it in our garden in the fall or in the winter or too early. A lot of people were really calling very early in the season asking if we had it. And I just kept telling them no, but we don't need it. And a lot of people worry, oh my gosh, but I'm seeing all these butterflies flying around, and that's fine. They're not in laying mode. They're in the mode of eating and finding mates and doing the thing that they need once it starts coming up. So this actually supports the natural cycle of what's happening. So when it starts to die down, if you still have caterpillars on it, don't worry about it. It's the natural cycle of life, and we want to make sure that we're not planting something and supporting them when they're not supposed to be laying eggs. That's a really, really important thing. So this weekend we're having all kinds of talks all about the monarchs. I'm super excited because we're going to be doing 4 different talks. We're going to be talking about the natural life cycle of the caterpillar into the monarch, and how many cycles they go through before they overwinter, and how that all works, how to support them with the right kind of things, water, nectar, having the right kind of plant for them to lay their eggs on. James is going to be doing a tour through his whole entire bird and butterfly garden that he's been working super hard on. He's going to be showing you all the different plants that he has there, just doing kind of general walking tour through all of that. We're going to be talking specifically about the differences between the native and the tropical milkweed, and exactly why that's the wrong thing to do, and so you can have a better understanding about it and know that you're doing the right thing and feel really good about it. And we're going to be talking about general nectar plants for everybody, because once you start planting this kind of stuff and you have a really purposeful garden, you'll notice you're going to get more birds. You're going to get tons because the caterpillars, or sorry, the butterflies and the hummingbirds like the same kind of stuff, so you'll get a lot of hummingbirds, and you'll just notice there's more life in your garden, which is really, really exciting. I love walking out in the morning and seeing all the birds around and watching them do their thing, and watching the butterflies kind of float around very lazily. And if you know the monarchs, they have that very lazy kind of floating habit, which is super nice, especially on a hot day like today. You can kind of feel a little bit of that breeze and watch them kind of lazily float around. It's just a really exciting time in the garden. So we're going to be going over all of those things. We have a really amazing couple surprises coming up for you. So I definitely want to tell you, go on to the website, sign up for the mailing list so you know all the fun stuff that's going on. We're going to be doing this Saturday and Sunday. You'll see me, you'll see Suzanne, you'll see James. We have a couple of really exciting surprises in store for you when it comes to butterfly gardening and gardening for all the pollinators, which is really, really cool. Suzanne's going to be making a really exciting announcement coming up in her next live stream. So make sure that you're watching for that. If you have anybody in your life who's like a huge butterfly fanatic, tag them down below. Let them know that we have the milkweed. Let your neighbors know. Spread the word. We're going to have a really cool exchange program going on. So if you knew anything about that last year, we do an exchange program. So watch out for the announcement for that, so you can let all your neighbors know. If you're walking around like I do and you're noticing, they have a lot of tropical milkweed, I leave flyers on people's doorsteps so they know. And you know what's really cool about it is I see that they have switched over, which is really, really exciting. So make sure you're spreading that word and that everybody's doing the right thing, and we support this amazing population of butterflies, and we make them happier and healthier, and those numbers keep increasing. So I do see an upward trend, which is really, really great, and I know that we're all working really hard on doing the right thing. So this is a live stream, of course, so if you have any questions, you can add those down below, but make sure that you come in this weekend because it's going to be really, really cool, and it won't be as hot as it is today. Goodness gracious, it is hot. So I'm standing here getting super hot. I can tell my camera operators are as well. But it's going to cool down, which is really great. So this Saturday and Sunday is not going to be as hot as today and tomorrow. But if you want that milkweed, come in because it goes super fast. That's how it goes. So if we got any questions, I'll answer those now. If you came into this too late and you missed the question aspect of it, just put those down below. If we don't get to them all, we will definitely get to those and answer those for you later. So let's go for the questions. What do we got?
Okay, first question. My milkweed is looking sickly. I cut it way back and I grew it back with the same brownish leaves. Any tips?
So I'm wondering though, is it the native or is it the tropical? Because I only had to cut back one milkweed, and I didn't do that until the fall, and it did not come back until just recently. So I cut that one back probably in October, maybe November. Everything else totally died down on its own, and it completely died down to nothing, and it just came back. So brownish leaves, kind of unusual. Having to cut it back and having it come back so quickly tells me that it's probably the tropical milkweed. The other way you can tell the tropical milkweed without looking at the flowers is the leaf is a lot wider. It's a lot deeper green. It's more heavily veined than these ones are. If you look at these ones, it almost looks like tarragon, honestly, to me. It's got a very, very thin leaf. It's really super herbaceous and soft feeling. So brownish leaves, kind of unusual. So I'm almost wondering what kind it is. And the other thing I always say, especially when we get into like very specific questions here, take a picture of it, bring it in so I can take a look at it. Any of us could take a look at it here at Rogers and kind of tell you what's going on. You can email us pictures too, give us a call. So if you're not nearby and you can't come in, call us here at the nursery. We'll give us one of our email addresses so you can send us pictures and take a look at it. So that way we can kind of help you figure out what the problem is. I haven't really had any issues with it looking sickly. I don't fertilize these with anything. They get some supplemental fertilizer from me fertilizing the things nearby, but I don't do any specific fertilizing on it, with the exception of putting down worm castings and some of the worm juice from the worm castings. That's the only kind of stuff that it gets, but it doesn't ever really get a true fertilizer just on the plant. They do really well because they are a California native. They don't need a whole lot of fertilizing, extra supplemental fertilizing like the other stuff tends to need, with the exception of some of the other natives don't need it either. But I don't do a lot of fertilizing on that. So send us a picture. Call us here if you can't come in. You can email a picture or take a couple pictures and bring them in so we can take a look at that.
Right. I had milkweed for the first time last year and had a huge issue with flies laying their eggs inside the caterpillars and killing them in large numbers.
Right.
Any advice about getting rid of them?
I don't like this. Not last year, but the year before was the first time that I heard anything about that and started looking at that. I just started kind of Googling it myself and looking into it. I'm going to have Ron Vanderhoff, who is the general manager here, who is the absolute expert on California monarchs, truly. I'm going to talk to him about that, and maybe he can put a little blurb down below that. So anybody who has had that problem, watch that, because he'll put some kind of good information down in there. But yes, that is a problem. It was brought to my attention about 2 years ago that that's become an issue. I forget what the fly is called, but it's a black little nasty thing that's kind of horrible looking, but we'll talk to Ron about that. But I do know that that is an issue. And again, when it comes to things like trying to spray for other things, then we're affecting these guys, which we don't want to affect that guy. He has completely eaten down that branch, which is kind of amazing. But again, sometimes too, we have to kind of realize circle of life. Right? So I also have a little bit of a problem. Sometimes I hear people, they're like, oh, I'm picking my caterpillars off and I'm bringing them inside and I'm feeding them inside and I'm hatching them inside and releasing them. And part of me is like, okay, I get it. I get why you want to protect them, and I understand that it's exciting if you have kids to kind of let them watch that cycle. But doing too much of that is kind of an issue. That's again where we're interfering, and the whole reason that animals are having any kind of problems is our interference. So we have to really kind of balance, like, what do we do? Do we help them, and how do we help them? It's kind of like the plight of, the people who go out and they film these beautiful documentaries, and then they watch the animal that they've been filming forever get attacked by another animal, and you can't interfere. It's hard. I understand it's super hard, but interfering is part of the problem and why there's an issue in the first place. So like I said, long rant. I will have Ron look at that, see what kind of information we can get for you about that. I haven't experienced that myself, knock on wood, and I really watch mine almost every single day once the population starts showing up at my house. But we'll get some information down there, and if there is anything that we can do, we'll put it down in there. If it's something where we have to just step back and go, okay, this is life, then that's sometimes how it goes.
Will your milkweed flower this season?
Yes, it will. So the flower is very similar to like these kind of flowers. It is that kind of landing pad sort of flower. It's a pale, pinky, kind of whitish color. I think it really kind of depends on where you're at by how much color it gets. I tend to find that the more coastal, I find that it's a little bit more white, and the more inland it's a little bit more pinkish. But yeah, it's a big kind of landing pad kind of flower like this. They're a little scraggly, I'm not gonna lie. Towards the end of the season, they're definitely a little yellowy and kind of hayish looking. Not gonna lie, that's why planting this stuff around it to kind of make up for that's super important. But it is the right thing to plant for sure. But yes, they will flower, unless yours starts to look like this. It's kind of amazing. Look, he's already taken down that whole entire branch. It's so funny, especially compared to this one that doesn't have anything. It's pretty eaten up at this point, right? Look at that bad boy just chomping away. So unless it gets totally eaten down, you might not get flowers. So, but if you have a branch that gets long enough, it'll definitely get a flower on it.
How to overwinter your milkweed?
Yeah, so that's where you want to actually kind of slow down on things. So I don't have any in pots. I have all of mine in the ground. So they're getting a little bit of supplemental water in the wintertime from my other plants, but I don't do anything specifically to them. I don't directly water them. If you have them in pots, so if they're getting supplemental water from your irrigation, that's totally fine. You just don't have to do anything special to them, quite honestly. Just ignore them. It's kind of like growing nasturtiums. The more you ignore them, the better they are. So you don't need to do anything specific to them. If you have them in pots, don't put that away inside a garage where it's not getting any water. It does need moisture. It does need any natural water that we're getting. That's super important for them because they are native. They're growing on the hillsides here, so they're getting all the natural water that's happening, and they're coming back year after year after year on the hillsides without any help from us. So we're doing essentially the same kind of thing for these guys. So I know it's kind of hard because we're so used to water a ton in the summer, water a ton in the fall, and that's something you don't need to do for these guys. They are totally native to here. They like this environment. They like the kind of water we get. We are in a bit of a drought, so adding extra water is totally fine, especially in the springtime. Giving them that water that we're not getting that we naturally get in the springtime, super important. The water that we're not probably going to get as much in the winter time as we normally get is good too. So keeping them somewhere where they can get the water from natural rainfall. And I do suggest putting other plants underneath there. So if you do have a pot where you have milkweed in there, put a couple of other native things in there. They are going to stay up year round, like the penstemon margarita bop. I mean, it doesn't get prettier than that. Yarrow too. I love the Sonoma Coast yarrow. I didn't have any of that flowering, but it's a little bit of a greener leaf than this. It is a white flower on it, so it's that pretty deep green and white. And the nice thing about it is when the flowers are not around, the foliage is very, very leafy, very ferny. We have it actually in the bird and butterfly garden here. And the really kind of cool thing about it is everybody's constantly going, what's the fern in there? And I know instantly that they're talking about that Yarrow Sonoma Coast, and that's a California native too. So when you do pots with California natives, I suggest all California natives in those pots. I have a couple of California native pots, and it's just nice because I know that their treatment is all pretty much the same. Not all California natives are created equally, so you also got to think, here in California we have a huge range. We have natural water sources, we have snow, we have deserts, we have marshes, so make sure that you're paying attention to what goes with what. So make sure that you're putting things that have similar requirements. The yarrow is a great one, the penstemon is a great one, and that way you're taking care of those and keeping those happy. As long as those are happy through the whole entire winter, you know this will come back really nicely for you. And you'll know you'll get even more and more. So that way, again, like I'm going through and kind of taking out some of the larger babies that I'm starting to get, and I'm moving them around in my garden, so I'm getting more and more. I'm sharing with my neighbors, so that way I'm spreading it out into my neighborhood as well.
Okay, last question.
Yeah.
Do caterpillars eat aphids?
They don't. So the aphids don't affect them, and they don't affect the aphids. So when we get the aphids, again, like I said, a gentle spray with a hose to kind of knock them off. Knocking them off is not necessarily going to spread them around because they are extremely soft-bodied. So even disrupting them a little bit, even with your fingers, a Q-tip, a toothbrush, a paintbrush, whatever it is that you use to take them off, is usually going to kill them because they're so soft-bodied. You're going to injure them, and they can't continue doing what it is that they do. I'm going to tell you all that you don't necessarily want to have a super squeaky clean plant. If you have a super squeaky clean plant, probably was treated with something most likely, or you're extremely lucky. I got them on my plants. I'm really good about my neighboring plants not having that issue. I use a lot of worm castings in my garden, which helps like a natural systemic because it puts a really nice good enzyme into the plants that they don't like. I still got them. I know that those were getting some of that because of my other plants that I was treating with. It's going to get the runoff from there. It's just going to happen. It's just something that we live with. You know, knowing, again, it's just like with my veggie garden. I just picked some cabbage this morning and my husband goes, there's no slugs in it, right? And I'm like, you know what? Better that there's slugs in there than not, because then you know that it's organic versus something that's been totally treated with a ton of pesticides. So having some presence of the bad bugs is okay. Having a huge presence of the bad bugs, not okay. And that's where you gotta kind of jump in. So I just keep them cleaned off. I make sure that I look to make sure there's no baby caterpillars or little eggs nearby. Google, if you don't know, Google what the eggs look like. Once you know what they look like, it's pretty easy to tell them. And then just kind of wipe them off gently to control the population so it doesn't get too terribly bad, because a completely infested plant is not a good thing, and it will definitely weaken the milkweed for sure. But it would be like dying from a bad case of head lice. Possible, but not probable, right? So don't worry about it too terribly much. So make sure you go sign up for our email list. Go onto our website, check out all the amazing talks. They're going to happen all day, both Saturday and Sunday. We have some really exciting surprises, so come into the store so you can check it out. We have some really, really fun stuff. When you come in and you walk over, you'll know, trust me. It's really amazing and really exciting. We do all kinds of fun things like our exchange, so watch out for that. We'll give you announcements for that, where you can bring in a tropical milkweed. We will give you a free native milkweed. How cool is that? So make sure you let all your neighbors and everybody know about that, and make sure you are signed up for that. Also, make sure that you check out our YouTube page. There is all kinds of amazing information there. Tons of videos specifically about this, tons of videos specifically about natives. We do post all of our live streams onto our Facebook and Instagram page, so you can look through all of those, but our videos that we make especially for the YouTube page are, for one thing, beautiful. They look really gorgeous. The editing team does a really, really good job, but you can find out all kinds of information from a ton of different experts about this as well, which is really, really cool. So education is key, absolutely, right? So thank you so much for tuning in with me today. It's always really fun to do this for you. It's going to be a scorcher today, so I'm getting ready to log off. So stay well and be safe, and happy gardening, everybody. Bye.